Humility. Humility is the conscious awareness and acceptance of eternity as your own body. Humility is the time that you spend in love with existence itself. When you don't love existence, you feel that you're separate from existence. You're separate from this world. And you stand back from it. You hide. Humility is courage in that it's the open acceptance of your own perfection. Humility is the ability to see through darkness and perceive light not only on the other side of darkness, but in darkness itself. Humility means that we're willing to take tremendous chances with our life, with our death, and that which lies beyond. Humility in a simple form is an image that is supplied in the I Ching, a mountain within the earth. It's the hexagram of modesty or humility. The mountain exists within the earth. We don't see it, but its strength and power are there. So humility is something that exists and has a strength and power, but is unseen. Humility is the most important quality in the spiritual life. There is no quality that is more important, because whatever qualities and powers you possess, if you do not have humility, they are all in vain. Whereas if you have humility, you're halfway to God realization. Humility is not enough, but I say it's the most important quality that you can possess in your arsenal of spiritual qualities, because it is the only one that when it is lacking, spiritual growth stops. The absence of humility is ego. Ego stops all spiritual growth. Just as during an eclipse, we fail to see the sun because the moon gets in the way, so the light of knowledge, of Dharma, of truth, is eclipsed by the ego. Even though just beyond it, there may be nothing but light and perfection. Unless we can break through the ego or dissolve the ego, there is no spiritual progress. You are happiest when you are humble. You are most miserable when you are very egotistical. The ego sense suggests that I am the body, I am the mind, I am temporal, I exist in this world, I was born at a certain time, I'll die at a certain time. The space in between those times is what I call my life. The time after that is my death. Then there's my rebirth. The sense of ego is the sense of separativity. I am a finite individual. I suffer. I feel joy. I feel pleasure. I feel pain. Ego synthesized is selfhood, the sense of self-importance, that you really matter, and nothing could be further from the truth. Humility means freedom. Freedom in its earliest stages, because it provides growth, and growth takes you out of the cycle of change that you're currently in, which is stagnation. Humility leads to absence, to the void and beyond. It's very easy to be humble when no one else is around. There's no reason for us to demonstrate our superiority because no one challenges it. So we can sit and be humble. When we interact with others, the ego manifests. We have to show that we're superior, or that in some way we know more. We're more spiritually advanced, we love more, we're kinder, or we're not as developed, we're the worst. Everyone is better. Everyone meditates better than I do. That's ego. The best or the worst. Humility accepts moderation. Humility feels that there is someone somewhere who can do anything I can do better. Except for one thing. No one can be better at being me. I have no importance. I will come and go in this world and be forgotten. That's freedom. Yet at the same time, I am important in the sense that I do have a role to play in this cosmic game, that there is something for me to do. I may ease the suffering of another. I may give joy. Or I may die in the attempt. But I must play my role, be it great or small. That's humility. Without self-importance, without self-indulgence. The ego seeks fame, fortune. Humility doesn't seek it all, it accepts. The ego wants to climb the highest mountain so it can stand on top. Humility is content to be in the valley or to be on top of the mountain or anywhere in between. Humility knows that whatever is the Dharma, whatever is truthful and right, will eventually persevere. Humility accepts that God places each one of us in the right place at every single moment. Not a moment too soon, and not a moment too late. When Hamlet speaks, shortly before his death, and he says there's a special providence in the fall of a sparrow. What's to come is to come, and what is. What will be, will be. There's a deep understanding of his destiny. He recognized that his death was imminent. He sensed it. But that death was proper, because God does everything perfectly. Eternity does everything perfectly. There is never a time when you and I have not existed. We have always existed, and we will always exist. There is never a time when you and I have not been all that there is. The realization that Atman is Brahman, that the knower is the known, that everything is one, that separativity is an illusion of selfhood. The fact that you see a manifold world with different times and different places and different conditions, this exists only because of a lack of humility, which we call ego. When there's nothing but humility, there's nothing but spiritual oneness. Then there's no separation, no disassociation, no unhappiness. Your life is pure joy, pure ecstasy when you live in humility. Meditation is humility. In meditation, the mind stops. Thought ceases. When thought stops, the world stops. When the world stops, perception stops. When perception stops, the sense of I as perceiver falls away. When this occurs, there is nothing but eternity, nothing but humility, nothing but perfection. Absence is humility. The absence of thought, the absence of doubt, the absence of ego. Only the ego can fear. Only the ego can experience hate and lust and jealousy. Humility experiences none of these things. Rather, it merges in the transcendental awareness of perfection. To develop humility, you have to love humility. This is easy to do, because you simply must consider who are those people whom you really love the most. Who are those people whom you consider to be noble, self-sacrificing? Are they the people who make a great deal of noise in the world? Or are they rather quiet except when they must act, and then they act with efficiency and purity, and then withdraw? Who would you rather sit next to at a party? Someone who will talk on and on for hours and hours about themselves and how wonderful they are, and will only let you get a word in edgewise just so they can keep you enraptured in their conversation about their own wonders? Or would you rather sit next to someone who will ask you questions about yourself, who is genuinely interested in who you are, what you do, what your life is like, what you feel? Humility is the latter. Ego is the former. And we prefer humility in others, and if we prefer it in others, we can soon prefer it in ourselves. If you wish to cultivate humility, then you should associate with those who are humble. Remember, humility doesn't mean hiding in the corner and pretending that you're not strong, pretending that you don't have talents and capacities. Humility rather means to be what you are. Above all else to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the day, the night, thou canst be false to anyone. So humility means coming to the root of the matter. Sitting and honestly looking at yourself and saying, this is me for better or worse, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poor, even at death we don't part. And it's with that basic assumption that humility begins. You own a big store. You just bought it. So the first thing you do is you go in and you take stock. You see what kind of inventory there is. There may be a lot of one product, a lot of bread, a lot of milk if you bought a supermarket, but there may not be many canned goods or fresh fruits. So you take stock. Now, taking stock is a very important step. If you try and pretend that there are a lot of vegetables, and you deny the fact that there's a great deal of rye bread, when the customers come, there's going to be a terrible problem. Because you'll say, well, I'm sorry, Mrs. Smith, we're out of rye bread, and she'll see that there are 500 loaves of it. On the other hand, if you say, oh, yes, Mrs. Smith, we have a wonderful, wonderful selection of bell peppers, and she'll go and see none at all. Well, this is how most people lead their lives, in illusion. They don't take an accurate stock of themselves. They don't see their imperfections, or they create perfections in their own mind that don't exist. They're always trying to be someone else. The idea is that someone else, this distant image, is someone who's better, someone who's happier. The people next door, somehow their life works and mine doesn't. The person who sits next to me in meditation, somehow they meditate better than I do. They're purer. This is the ego, not humility, speaking. The ego feeling sorry for itself, feeling miserable and lonely and discouraged and depressed. Humility has nothing to do with these feelings. Humility accepts that the very nature of existence, the very nature of a human being is joy, complete, unadulterated, ecstatic joy. And humility accepts joy rather than sorrow, accepts joy rather than frustration. Humility does not live in the prison of illusion that says that this world is a dark and terrible place. Rather, it says that those are phantoms, those perceptions. That rather everything is eternity, everything is God, everything is divine. There is nothing that isn't perfect. That the only reason we don't see that perfection constantly is because we lack humility. Because we're seeing life in our terms, through our perceptions, through our eyes, and not through the eye of eternity itself, which is humility. When you meditate, you should meditate on humility. That is to say, you should feel that you're very, very small and the world is very large. And then you should feel that you are the very large world. And then you should feel that beyond the large world, you're nothing. That is to say, we go beyond form and formlessness, and there's nothing, nirvana, where the wind doesn't blow, stillness. that that very life essence that we call existence is our body. Real humility means that you have the courage to accept that you are eternality itself, that you're not simply a finite person, but that you are existence. Real humility also means that you're willing to give someone a bigger slice of pie than you get when it's your favorite pie. A difficult thing to do. It's easy when it's not your favorite to say, "Here, George, this is a good one. Oh, please, you take the bigger piece." Humility means realizing that it's fun to give everything away, particularly the things that you were most attached to. The outer things are the easiest. It gets difficult when it involves giving away your pride, giving away your sorrow, your hatred, your enmity, your jealousy, your desires. But humility can give everything to God. It says, everything came from the source, everything returns from the source. I myself came into this world, I know not how. One day I will vanish from this world. I give myself totally over to you, O Lord, O infinite reality. And I trust you completely and implicitly, because you are my very self. This is humility. Humility is the conscious acceptance of eternality. The realization that freedom is not something that's yet to come, but that freedom is perfect awareness, perfect being.
The lightning and the thunder of life are clamorous. Beyond them is the stillness of perfect light and enlightenment. We exist for a transient moment, and then we dissolve again into the clear light of reality, the Dharmakaya, the endless cycle of perfection and light, as it manifests itself.